Hello and welcome to Next. I am your host, Erica Parker Price, and this is my first episode under this new name, Next. So those of you that have been following along will know that this podcast was previously named Land Your Next Job, and I decided it was time to shake things up a little bit. And by that I mean to look more broadly at what next means for each and every one of you. That next may be your next job that comes with a paycheck that you get every 2 weeks and a boss and a place that you go to work, but it could also be something much broader than that. And so I want to encapsulate all of it. And I thought a good place to start would be something that I have come to learn over these last couple of years that I've been out on my own. And that's that it's easier than ever to start your next thing. And when I say thing, I mean anything, right? It could be to start your next business, whether that's going to be a solopreneurship, an entrepreneurship, whether it's something you do full-time or just in a tiny little bits of time around what you're currently doing. So I want to keep this wide open. I think what I'm talking about here applies to everybody in the career space. It applies to people that are currently working in a job and planning to stay there. The reason I think it applies is that we should always be planning for our future. If there's anything that we've learned is that there's not much loyalty in the corporate space right now. Now, I know for a long time people have been saying that young people are jumping from job to job and nobody was staying more than 2 years, but quite frankly, companies have been responding the same way in return. So planning for your future, managing your own career path, I think is incredibly important. Sometimes you're going to be getting exactly the experience that you need at work in that job. And sometimes there may be a better opportunity for you to go and create something yourself. So that's the first group of people that I think this applies for. Anybody who's out there working, maybe intending to keep that job, but with an eye on the future and thinking, how can I continue to prepare myself for whatever's coming out there? The second group would be people that are job searching. So those of you that I've been talking to in this podcast, as it was known, Land Your Next Job, this is something that I've been talking about for a long time, is that going out and creating something, particularly using AI to create something, is important for many different reasons. One, it's going to give you those AI skills on your resume that everybody wants right now. Second, it gives you something to talk about in an interview. So one of the questions that I get most often is, what do I say about my gap? And that gap varies in everybody's mind. Some people think it's just been a couple months. I don't know what I'm going to say. And for some people, it's been more than a year. Regardless of what that time is, I think it's great to have an answer for what you've been doing in your time. You may also have developed skills during this time that you can share as an answer to an interview question. And then the final thing is it gives you a little bit of your agency back. So we all know that the job search tends to be very one-sided. There's a lot of waiting in the game and there's a lot of silence and rejection. This is something you can do for yourself. You get to decide what it is you're creating, all of those things. And then the third audience, this is the one that may seem like the most obvious one, but this is for people that are truly ready to pivot or maybe planning a pivot in the future, I'll say. If you are in a job or maybe have been laid off from a job and you know that you want to be doing something different next time. So much of what I hear is that people are looking for something that is more aligned with who they are. People are definitely taking a look at their jobs. And I'll be honest, I definitely have people that come and talk to me and say that they don't even think their jobs are real jobs anymore. They're just shuffling emails from point A to point B. There's a lot of AI on this side and a lot of AI on that side. And people are getting a little bit confused on what the plot is. If you're in a role right now that doesn't feel like it's going to be right for you for much longer, then tune in as well. Because what I'm going to be talking about is why it is easier than ever to start your own thing. And the good news is that that's really the opposite of what we've been talking about from a landing your next job perspective. It is, and I'm not going to lie, it is harder to get hired in 2026 than it has been in a long time. Not that 2025 is great, but it has not been getting better. And it, of course, depends on your level and your geography and your job type. All of those things have a big impact here, but it's harder. That's simply the truth. And that's why I wanted to put a little bit of lightness into this podcast, into this episode, because I really do think now is the time that you can more easily create your own thing. One of the people that I've heard talking about this for a number of years comes from a profession different than what I usually work with. He's a Hollywood actor. His name's Matthew Del Negro, and he has a podcast called 10,000 No's that I have been listening to since way back when. He actually came to an event that I was at with Kathy Heller, who was the person that taught me to podcast. I was listening to her podcast while driving to work. It was called Don't Keep Your Day Job. And then he came out and was talking about 10,000 No's. Most people have heard the phrase of how it takes 10,000 hours to become an expert. Maybe you read it in one of Malcolm Gladwell's books, or you've just heard the phrase. There's definitely debate as to whether 10,000 is a magical number or not, but I won't belabor that point. But Matthew was talking about the 10,000 no's that an actor needs to get. And is it a made up number? Absolutely. But that is a profession that has all kinds of rejection, which I think, quite frankly, is very correlated with people that are applying for jobs out there. One of the things I remember him saying years ago when I had the opportunity to see him speak in person at Kathy Heller's event, and I've heard him say on the podcast when he's talking to people who are trying to find their way in that industry, and I just happened to see a video of it this week, is this concept of creating your own thing. Rather than waiting for somebody to deliver the job to you, what if you were to find a way to bundle up your skills, bundle up what you're interested in, and find a way to turn that into something? Now, are you going to wave a magic wand and replace a big corporate salary instantly with this brand new thing that you created? No, I'm not going to say that that's how it works. Maybe in rare cases it does. It's much more blended and nuanced than that. But with the way everything is changing in our job market, it is an opportunity that I want people to at least be considering. Maybe it's going to end up being the financially right choice for you. Maybe it will be something that gives you the fulfillment that you've been looking for. And maybe you'll find a way to balance it. Maybe this will be something that you do with a little bit of your time that gives you that fulfillment that allows you to keep the corporate job that maybe isn't providing that for you. It can be a mix of all of those things. And I just feel like so many things have changed that make it truly easier than ever. I'm going to talk a little bit about that on this episode. The first question that many people ask me when we have these conversations is, well, what would I even build? What would I do? You're talking about creating my own thing. That's not who I am. I'm not an entrepreneur. I don't have 17 business ideas in my back pocket. And I will acknowledge that some of you definitely do have those 17 business ideas. So I'd say for those people, go ahead and pull out all those little scraps of paper, those journal entries that you have from, the day that you wanted to quit your job and you were thinking, I should just go do this. So some of you are going to be in that category. Some of you are going to be thinking, this isn't for me. I don't even know what I would build. Let me give you just the two examples from my own household. Now, you know my story. I became a career coach, but it wasn't really what I set out to do. I set out with a passion on my previous podcast, originally called Ready, Pause, Go. And it was really about being an example of what was possible to women who had taken a long career pause. So I had taken 13 years off, and I wanted to show people an example of a story of somebody who went back to work, first into a different industry and then eventually into tech. What I didn't plan was to turn that into any sort of paid work. I didn't plan to coach people on it. I didn't plan to start my own business, but that was something that people were coming to me for. And that's really the guidance that I want to give you is, what is it that people come to you now that you do for free, that others value, that maybe at some point could be something that people pay you for as a service? And it doesn't even have to be right now that you decide I'm going to start charging people for it. But what if you were to start looking at it as a business? How would that change the lens that you look at it through? The second example, I told you I was going to give you the two examples from my own household. My husband's a cardiologist who had to retire when he was 47 for his own health reasons. And once he'd had the time and the space to heal and to figure out exactly what his future looked like, he really still wanted to do something else. And when we looked at what he was doing for others for free, I have to say my friends and family were prominent in his mind because so many of them asked him for medical advice. And so he took some time to research what would it look like if I were to provide that medical advice to other people as a business. So the same kind of thing that he gives to his brothers, his in-laws, his friends, neighbors. What would it look like if he were to make a business around that? Because what he's excellent at is providing concise answers that people understand, particularly when there's somebody in a crisis medical situation, like in the hospital, and nobody can figure out what's going on. And so that's how we came up with the tagline for his business, which was, "Don't you wish you had a doctor in the family?" Or something like that. I can't even recall. He's actually moved on to a different field now, but this was his first thing that he created. He called it Call Dr. Chris because that's who he was. He always said, "I'm Dr. Price, you can call me Chris." And so that's how that business was born. This was a few years ago, really before AI was a big thing, but he found a niche that was a really good fit with his skill set, and it gave him a way to give back to the community in a way that he enjoyed and in a way that made him feel valued as well. So those are just two examples of, in my household, things that we were doing, which we did not really consider to be businesses in the beginning, that then eventually became that. When I say that it's easier than ever, I want you to think about things like advertising. Like, it used to be that you had to buy space with a TV channel or buy a quarter page ad in a newspaper or a magazine, things that were very cost prohibitive. Now, that has been changing for a long time. We moved to banner ads and all kinds of things. But think of all the ways that you can get your story out in front of people now for free. Now, are there trade-offs in some of what those platforms take from us and give to us? Absolutely there are. But think about how things have changed. Beyond that, look at publishing a book. You can publish a book without a publishing contract now. That wasn't something that you could do before. You can start a business without venture capital money or even going to the bank to ask for a loan back in the day. All these things have changed. They've been changing for a number of years, but I really think AI is the game changer. If I look at where things have moved in the last, let's say, 2 years, but I feel like we should really only be thinking in like 6-month or 3-month segments at this point. But if I look at how everything has changed, I really think the door has opened to make this possible for anybody. So if you take that idea of what is it that I like to do, what is it that I could turn into a business, how do I go about doing it? I think about how Google search changed everything. Who knows how long ago now? 15, 20 years ago, whenever it was. For those of you that have been around that long, think about all the times that you have Googled, how do I fill in the blank? Think about all those times. And while not all of us believe in the fake it till you make it concept, I know we've all been in that place where we thought, oh, thank goodness I can just Google how to do it. That has been put on steroids. You can now go into your favorite LLM of choice, whether you're in Claude or ChatGPT or Perplexity, Gemini, Copilot, wherever you are. And with the snap of your fingers, you can get a 20-page business plan written out for you with answers to just a few questions. It has really changed the game on how to create a business. If I look at my own business, I'll walk you through 6 pieces of what I consider to be my business stack and the way that I built this business. So the first is my audience. There is a place for everybody out there right now. If there is something that you're doing and you want to get attention for it, you can find it. If you like to write, Substack is a great place for you. That's why I'm newly on there, because I think of it as kind of akin to my old blogging days. I'm still figuring it all out, but I like the focus on the writing. If you're somebody who loves the visual imagery, Instagram, probably your place. Of course, you can do reels there, but if you're really into short form video, YouTube and TikTok, those are going to be your place. All of these are available to you for free. All of the creation that you need to do can honestly be done on the phone in the palm of your hand. Once you find your people, you usually have to have somewhere to send them. A website is typically what that can be, but I've seen things changing in that space as well. You can go create a one-page website on Lovable.com. If you haven't heard of it, yes, Lovable is the name of it. You can set up a Shopify account so people can just come buy from you. If you have a physical product or even a digital one that you're selling, you can set that up through Shopify. There's so many different ways to do this. For creating a brand, I will share that when I created my new podcast art, it's pretty simple. It's just a color and the word next. But sometimes just deciding how that all gets laid out in a way that meets the algorithm that you need to for all the podcast apps out there, AI can be really helpful. And I created that just a couple back and forth. I gave it some ideas as to what I was looking for, what I wanted to change. I uploaded an image and we were done in probably less than a half hour. You need a way to collect money. Stripe is amazing for that. You need a way for people to schedule time with you. If you're somebody who is having people book time with you, Calendly is what I've used for a long time. But there's lots of others out there. And then finally, this one's kind of newer, but the idea of creating your own chief of staff for your business. I haven't actually done this one yet, but I know people who have, and it's on my list of things that I want to do, is to build that in Claude. All of these things are easier than ever with AI. Most of these things have changed how they work even in the last year as a result of AI. Like, for example, Calendly, where people can book appointments with you. That service now just automatically sends AI notes out to your clients. So if, as a coach, I'm booking people in Calendly and I want them to have notes from our session, that can just be automatically done. All of this is a game changer in terms of how much it costs and how long it takes. I think the amount of time that needs to go into building your business is so dramatically reduced. I think of back in the day when people were, hiring people to do their websites over a period of months and they were getting a designer for their brand. The whole thing has really been collapsed in a good way. And that's what I'm encouraging people to pay attention to know that this is easier than it's ever been. And I think that gives you an opportunity. As you can probably tell, I get excited about talking about all these things, and I love helping people figure out what's next for them. I could actually see turning this into like some sort of masterclass. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. If you'd like to see how I created this, what tools I use. I know I gave you kind of a really quick rundown there, but if you want a more detailed version of that, if you have an idea percolating in your head and you're like, how could I turn that into something? And like I said, this can be for those of you that are out there that are working, that are looking for work, that are planning a near-term pivot, or just want to plan for the future. Drop me a DM. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Substack. I'm trying to move everything over to Substack, but I know not everybody's there. But I am Erica Parker Price in all the places. That's Erica with a K. That's my website, ericaparkerprice.com. But I definitely consider doing that maybe later this fall. Offer a class to show people what I've done and really get people moving along in their own path. What I'm really hoping is that by talking about this and showing you some of the ways that I've done it, it'll really open the door for you to start thinking, what is it that I could do? How could this change my future? And what I'm going to be doing on the show is I'm going to be giving you examples of people that have already done this or people that are in the midst of it. Sometimes it's just the messy middle, and it's helpful for other people to see, you know what? I did that. When I think back to the early podcasts that I listened to, back before I created my own, 10,000 No's is the one I mentioned with Matthew Del Negro. These are old shows from years ago. Don't Keep Your Day Job with Kathy Heller. That was the show I would listen to while I was driving to my day job. Nothing like irony. These are kind of my transitional shows after listening to Serial, first ever podcast for any of you true crime people out there. I felt like that was the gateway to all the podcasts. But the other one that just came to mind, this isn't even in my notes as I'm recording, but it was When to Jump. And that was by Mike Lewis. And it was a show very much about people that were pivoting into really different things. I think he was in a consulting space. He left for a while to pursue his dream in sports. I might be getting it wrong. I think it was handball. He definitely became like the top 100 in the world. Again, I think it was handball, but that's what happens when you start talking about things that aren't in your notes for this podcast. As you can tell, this is something that has been percolating in me for years. This idea of getting people to consider what comes next and not just what is going to be handed to you on a platter, but what if you were to create your next whatever? What if you are the one that is in charge, that you are the one in the driver's seat of creating whatever comes next? What do you want that to be? That's what we're going to be talking about on this show. Thanks for being on this journey with me. I'm excited to help everybody discover what's next, whether your next is in the near future, the long-term future, whether it's something that you jump into, evolve slowly into. I'm excited to help you with yours and share some stories of inspiration along the way. Have a great week, and I'll see you next Monday. That's a wrap for this week. If this episode helped, please leave a quick review and subscribe wherever you listen. Share it with a friend in transition, and I'll see you next Monday.